please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Hi, welcome to Overdrive. You're watching the show with me, Sohini Dutt. Now, Harley Davidson's Ride Slide event showcased a number of motorcycles by the American manufacturer, and there are a couple of new motorcycles which will be coming to India soon. We sent Shumi to investigate further.
Welcome to Split, Croatia. We are here for an event Harley Davidson calls Ride Slide, and today primarily we're talking about the ride part of the event because my ride started with this bike. Now we know this bike quite well. This is the Harley Davidson Road Glide. The 2 or 3 things that you need to know is it's part of the touring family. We did about 150 kilometers on this bike. Beautiful, and as beautiful as the bike is, Croatia is even prettier, and some of the stuff that my eyes have seen, I wish I could download and send it to you guys. What we need to know about this is this motorcycle's fairing is mounted on the frame, which means it's a little bit further away from you, and that creates a sense of space.
But look closer at the color this particular Road Glide is wearing because I am stunned. Harley Davidson calls it hard candy green and it's an optional color. But the effect of the glitter under that clear coat is beautiful. And just to refresh your memory, that engine, it's the Milwaukee 8107, the 1750cc part liquid cooled V-twin that we've come to like quite a lot for its wonderful torque and refinement levels.
But we know this motorcycle, we've ridden this in India, we've ridden this one too. This is the Street Glide. Again, we know this motorcycle well. Those two, very similar in nature because they're the same frame, same engine, same transmission. But this one mounts the fairing on the fork. It brings the whole thing much closer to you. It feels more personal, feels a lot more sporty. However, to be completely honest, I'm not a fan of this because I'm between 5'10" and 6", which Harley Davidson says is precisely the right height for which this screen doesn't work, so you get buffeted quite a bit. But otherwise, beautiful motorcycle, very smooth. Very sporty for the size of this motorcycle, and it goes around corners really well too. Really likable.
This Street Glide is also wearing a hard candy paint scheme and it looks gorgeous too. Like the other touring models, this one also has the infotainment system that Harley Davidson calls Boom. You can sync your phone over Bluetooth and play music, and there is wired connectivity as well if you like. No Apple CarPlay or Android Auto yet, but I cannot imagine that that's too far away either. Did I listen to music in a place this gorgeous though? Well, actually yes, I had some classic rock playing right through, and it most certainly helped me get through the photography rotation.
But the motorcycles we want to talk about is what we rode next, the second part of the Ride Slide, and that would be the Sportsters. Let's talk about this one first. This is the new Iron 1200. Essentially, the name gives it away. The Iron 883, a very popular model globally and in India. This one's got the 1200cc version of the Sportster engine. It's got a small other set of changes, the bikini fairing on the front, the taller handlebars, but otherwise it's essentially what the Iron is. It's a simple motorcycle, it's a sporty motorcycle, it's got a really tiny tank, and we rode it in the format that an owner might, which is short rides to coffee stops or something. You go a small distance, wait a little bit, go a small distance again, and on that it feels really good. The thing that you need to know is this could probably come to India.
It's hard not to like the Iron 1200. It's an easy, cheerful ride, especially if you're just chilling in the saddle rather than trying to set a speed record. Personally though, I'm not a fan of that little bikini fairing. But Harley Davidson does point out, and I agree, it is a good starting point for personalizing your motorcycle. And of course, you absolutely must tip your hat to the Harley Davidson design team. The 70s inspired stripes look the business. The blue vignette on this black bike as well as the more subtle grey ones on the burnt orange motorcycle look very smart.
Is this coming to India though? That motorcycle has something to say about it. This is the new 48 Special, and this is the motorcycle I think that's been the most impressive of all the 4 that we've ridden so far. Essentially, it's a 48. It's got this beautiful 70s inspired sticker scheme, a taller handlebar, and it's got fatter forks. It feels a lot more sporty than the Iron, and together this thing just comes together, and we've cornered it so hard today. If you can see the feeler bolts, they're all rubbed out. It's beautiful.
Again, note the color selection here. The white is gently off-white and Harley-Davidson calls it billiard ball white. Very apt. And the stripes complement that color beautifully. The want is strong with this one for me. In fact, when I walked up to the series of Harley-Davidsons we had the choice of riding, the only color I had the eyes for was this white one on the 48 Special. And now, let's go back and talk about the Sportsters a bit more.
What we need to know, between the two Sportsters, one of them will be on sale in India before the year is out. This is the Ride Slide event, and that means we still have to talk about the sliding.
Mercedes-Benz is expanding its very important E-Class lineup with the very stunning E63 AMG. Now, Rohit was at BIC earlier this week and got a chance to sample this very quick car. Take a look.
Well, the Mercedes-Benz E-Class is one of the best business sedans out there. And when the latest Avatar came to India, Mercedes-Benz surprised us all by launching the long wheelbase variant of it. It is the perfect vehicle then for those who want the car to be an extension of their workplace, those who want to take their work to their car. But what if you are the kind of person who wants to clearly demarcate work and play? What if you are the kind of person who would want to just hang up that coat, roll up those sleeves and get behind the wheel more often than getting into the back seat? Well, this then could be the E-Class business sedan that you want. Say hello to the E63 S AMG. Its full name is rather long. Mercedes-AMG E63 S 4MATIC Plus. But this bloodline or its latest descendant doesn't need an introduction. The E-AMG has been the icon of German muscle cars for over 30 years now. And the E63 S that you see here created headlines last year as the most powerful E-Class that Stuttgart has ever produced. All that headlining power hides behind a familiar face that has 27mm wider cheekbones. The wide-bodied stance is further highlighted with the single-slat grille and the dog bone air dams that are now an AMG trademark. It is a smart and authoritative face, but wait till you see the tail. Its highlight is the near-upright spoiler that is tiny but sharp like a katana sword. It isn't meant to slice through wind though, and instead creates a lot of downforce on the rear axle. Oh, and the E63 AMG now has 2 live axles, and those give it the 4MATIC Plus badge on the gills. The distance between the wheels that these axles are mated to isn't as long as the new E-Class that the bosses are driven in, for the E63 is based on the shorter wheelbase variant that is sold globally. This size actually works perfectly for this car. It attacks corners with authority and with precision. Of course, those are not words that you would like to associate with an AMG sedan. Now, the good news is that both AMG and this car know that and acknowledge that. The bad news, however, is that the nannies at Mercedes-Benz have warned me not to shred the tires, not to go sideways, not to get any smoke out of the wheels. Unfortunately, I have to adhere to all of that. I won't blame them really, because like most new AMGs, the E63 too likes to eat its own tires. After all, the poor Michelins are bullied around by a serious number of German horses. Of course, it has all the crackles and pops that you expect from a German V8, but it's a bi-turbo configuration. It is one of their new engines. It doesn't sound as maniacal as some of the older engines, but who cares? It goes like a maniac. It has plenty of power, 612 PS to be precise, and wait for it, 850 Newton meters of torque. Let that sink in. 850 Newton meters of torque. 0 to 100 comes up in 3.4 seconds. It shoves your head into the backrest. But more importantly, it's how this car feels when it puts that power down. It can go into a drift very easily, like a typical AMG, but that 4MATIC Plus makes sure that there's enough power or enough traction at the front to pull you out of it very nicely. So you can have your fun at the same time. You can still put up some really fast lap times if you really want to. If those figures have sunk in, let's put them into perspective. The power and the torque is more than even the GTR, a sports car bred in the jungles of the green hell. But with great power comes, well, a slew of technologies that rein in that output. In the case of the E63 S is the 4MATIC Plus system. Its responsibility is to provide plenty of grip, but the AMG legacy means that it shouldn't dial down the madness. The result is that the E63 S will sway its tail out with oversteer quite often, and before the grin on your face turns into panic, the front wheels receive power and magically pull you out of that corner, making you look like a god of car control. Well, and if you indeed are a god of car control, then there is another tool that you may like. Stuff like a launch control is for the serious buffs, people who want to leave their mark on the lap time charts. But for people who want to leave their mark on every corner, this car also gets a drift mode. In God mode terms, it completely turns off traction control, and all the 612 PS is then fed to the rear wheels only. We were strictly warned against it as if it were a door to hell itself. Or maybe it is. Rear wheel driven control of 612 horses won't be a trot in the park, even if you want it to be. There is a race mode too, which significantly dials down the traction control but keeps the all-wheel drive system alert. But to save the tires, we were forced to stick to the driving mode fit for mortals, the Sport Plus, which too can be quite a handful if you don't come to terms with the 2-ton car. That said, the new E63 is quite agile than the outgoing model, but can make its weight evident if you enter a corner too hot. I really like the steering wheel on this as well. The feedback is amazing. It's so unlike a Mercedes-Benz. It's so unlike anything that we've driven that is so big and so powerful. Oh wait, there is of course a BMW that might just do this much better, but that's a story for another day. But this really comes close to the M5. That is the natural rival for this car. It comes close to the M5 as far as the steering feel goes. How it puts down power onto the track, how it behaves on the track is a completely different story. Like I said, I haven't unfortunately yet driven the M5. But this one, if I were to compare it to the earlier EAMG or the earlier M5, this feels a lot sprightlier, it feels a lot more agile, it feels light, it feels very eager to do what it does. The car that I'm driving right now gets steel brakes, but you can also option them with carbon ceramic brakes. So if you're going to frequent the track with this car, then of course those are the brakes to go for. They drop the anchor with authority, but they also take a bit of time to heat up, come up to heat, come up to their optimum performance, and they also take a little bit of time to cool down. If you're going to be using this car mainly out on the road, you're not going to frequent the track, then I think the steel brakes that the car comes with by default are perfectly well matched for the kind of car or the kind of usage that you're going to have. What also needs a bit getting used to is the 9-speed dual-clutch sport gearbox from AMG. While it's pretty telepathic in its automatic operation, the manual mode requires you to be in the optimum zone on the wide rev band to be able to pull quick downshifts. The heads-up display has a rather simple but effective rev counter to help you do just that, until you get a hang of the engine's sweet spots. That said, 2 laps around the BRC were certainly not enough to get used to the might of the new E63, but it was enough to conclude that the car seems like a big leap forward for the AMG sedans. It's more agile, more playful, and safeguards the fun quotient despite being bred on a German racetrack. Can't wait to drive it more out on the road and maybe a lot more laps at a racetrack then.
Well, look like Rohit had a great time with the Mercedes-AMG E63 S at the racetrack, but we will be getting that car for a road test pretty soon. So check out for that review. Time now though for us to check out the hottest news from this week.
You're joining us from the launch of the Triumph Tiger 1200. So this is the XCX variant which has been launched for 17 lakhs ex-showroom India. So let's take a look at the specs that the bike is running. So now, while the overall silhouette might look similar, there are plenty of changes under the skin. In fact, Triumph tell us that over 100 changes have gone into the new Tiger 1200. The pistons are lighter, the crank shaft is lighter, so it allows the engine to spin faster compared to the previous one. Also now you get this Brembo caliper up front, so the brakes are twin discs up front. The WB shocks are now adjustable, so in fact they are adjustable on the fly, and I'm going to show you that in a bit. Now if you come down the side, what you'll notice is a shaft drive. Now this inline triple, making around 140 bhp or thereabouts, is the most powerful shaft driven adventure bike on the market currently. So overall I think a much better package with over 100 changes and much lighter compared to its predecessor.
Now, the Honda CBR650F was the company's first assembled model to go on sale, and now the company has just updated the CBR650F, and Shumi will tell you more.
The Honda CBR650F received a strange reception because the guys who bought it, they're super happy, but most people thought it was very expensive and therefore not a lot got sold. That though is the new one. That's 2018, new bodywork, this fantastic black color, LED headlights, minor changes to the engine, new suspension. Ooh, sounds promising, doesn't it?
It should, because if you close your eyes and imagine what a Japanese inline 4-cylinder should sound like as you ride, the CBR650F soundtrack plays in your head. There's a smooth roar that builds to a muted wail at redline, which sounds glorious from the saddle. There's a distinctly civilized and sober personality up to 5000 RPM, after which the sound and vibration pattern changes to a slightly angrier note, and that is how it stays to the redline. It's a little more audible as well as personable than the 2017 model, this bike.
For 2018, the hardware inside hasn't changed much, but there's a new airbox and a new exhaust, and it makes quite the difference because there's only about 3 PS more. This is 89 PS now, but when you ride it, the first thing you notice is that Honda says the mid-range is stronger, but this CBR is now audible.
And it's quick too. It shoots past the 100 km/h mark in under 5 seconds. The challenge for you is to figure out how fast the bike actually goes. The CBR650F literally sneaks up to speed because the power is so linear. You never feel like it's going for it. You keep hearing it and feeling like you're just about to hit the meat of the power band, especially after you get past about 6500 RPM. There's a small buzz before that, but then it just goes and meets the red line. This is quick, but it's also subtle. On the flip side, if you ride with moderation and calm, the CBR650F's economy will surprise you. But as you do all this, what you will discover is that the area in which the 2018 model has really made a big leap forward is in the engine.
Let's talk about the suspension because that's really impressive. The SDBVs, they make this motorcycle absolutely plush and it's absorbing city roads in ways that it just shouldn't be able to do. I'm impressed. It's not like they have a lot of suspension travel though. It's not like you're going to take this thing off-road, but it just elevates the experience and makes you feel like this motorcycle will handle everything the world throws at it. That transforms it. I'm so happy.
So, that sweet sounding engine and lovely suspension is wrapped up in this mildly tweaked bodywork with that distinctive LED headlamp leading from the front. And this new matte black color looks extremely good to my eyes, and the quality of the paint is very good too. What Honda might have done better is the instrument cluster, which gets no update at all, and so the twin LCD display unit, well, it looks a little bare. The addition of small things like say a gear position indicator would have livened things up quite a lot. But these small changes aside, the Honda model update is a shrewd one. It makes small changes, but it makes them count.
For 2018, the Honda CBR650F definitely has clear strengths, and my favorite part is the suspension. Over the last couple of years, anytime you hear a Showa abbreviation, it's been a good one. Whether that's BPF, big piston forks, SFF, separate function forks, or this one, the SDBV or dual bending fork, they seem to have something special in them, and that makes the CBR so easy to ride, so composed and so stable. Unfortunately, at about 8.5 lakh rupees on-road Bombay, it's still an expensive motorcycle for the engine displacement, and it's still a little too gentle and a little too subtle, and not many people will like that in a new market like ours. But as Hondas go, middle displacement Hondas go, the CBR650F, solid choice.
Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time on this week's episode of Overdrive. But remember, you can stay in touch with the team through Facebook, Twitter, as well as subscribe to our latest videos on our YouTube channel. We'll see you next week. Until then, goodbye and many thanks for watching.